When you say nation, you talk about land. Our land is Africa. That's undeniable. This land is not our land.
That what Frantz Fanon's theory, psychological theory, is that we're in a post-colonial psychology. And what he calls that is an auto-destructional stage, which is the oppressor will oppress for so long that the oppressed no longer have to be physically oppressed. They do it to themselves automatically.
I'm black. Do you hear me, man? Do you understand? I am black. I'm a nigga. You understand me? I was born black, I live black, and I'm gonna die probably because I'm black. Because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head.
Hey man, it's like this, man. It's like, you know, it's like it's revolution time, man. There's no questions asked. Revolution is here. You know what I'm saying? We the youth, we the young. It's time for us to break loose, you know? We don't have no freedom, no rights, man. We slaves right now. Everybody's still a slave. That's what they told us today. In other words, you still a slave. No matter how much money you got, you still ain't shit. So, you know, it's on, just like that. Just like that.
Are really ready and willing to pay the price that is necessary for freedom. Our people will always be walking around here second-class citizens, or what you call 20th century slaves.
What price are you talking about, sir?
The price of freedom is death.
What's the figure?
I mean, what are you in this for? You want power, you want revenge, you know? What is it?
It's simple, Willie. I just want to be.
Hey, peace. Uhuru. Welcome to another episode of We Charge Colonialism podcast, the Black on Black violence series, Dr. Amos Wilson's phenomenal text. I think amazing text that really dissects the problem in the Black community when it comes to intercommunal violence and just violence in general, and really get into the heart of what the issue is. So peace to everyone out there. Hope I'm sounding good. It's been a minute. Hey, what's up? What's going on? Sugar? Peace, Uhuru. It's been a minute since I have done a exegesis on this text right here. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to really dive back into this book because it's been crazy. I've just been really busy and just out here working. So I just wanted to make sure though I get back on track with this text. And so I'm picking up on chapter 4. If anybody is joining for the first time and want to go back and look at some of the old podcasts or the previous podcasts, I covered chapters 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to get into chapter 4 tonight, and I won't finish the whole thing because I was like, really, I was looking at the chapter, and I was saying to myself, nah, this is going to take about 2 or 3 sessions to really dig into because I kind of want to look at some outside sources as well. So this is going to be like a little preview. Hopefully I don't get kicked out. I'm in my office. They might try to kick me out, but I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere until I finish what I started. So appreciate y'all joining. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel if this is your first time here. Make sure that you like and you share. Like and share the podcast. This is We Charge Colonialism. We are anti-colonial, Pan-African think tank. And I consider myself a Pan-African, but I'm an African internationalist too. I am a member of the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement, and I've been in the Uhuru movement for a long time. And so we practice African internationalism. Which is more of a focus on uniting African people under a collective socialist economy. So just want to be clear that we distinguish ourselves from some people who may be capitalistic in their ventures, but still may claim Pan-Africanism. But this isn't about that. I really try to unite with as many people as I can and not really try to get too bogged down into ideological differences. And that's the main thing too. I just want to say this as well before I really get into the text. It's important for us to make sure that we're a part of organization, that we're joining an organization if we're not a part of one, that we're connecting with and networking with people across the board to achieve our goal. You know, at least those people who believe that the system is not working in the interest of African people, of Black people. And that's something that I believe. And so I believe that, you know, there's going to have to be a transformation or a revolution in this system, of this system, or, you know, we are going to have to separate ourselves from this system, you know, probably have to do both. But one or the other has to happen in order for African people to really be able to be self-determined. We can't be self-determined under colonial conditions. So, you know, my goal when I do these podcasts, because I'm more of a like in the streets person, I will admit podcasting hasn't always been a thing of mine, but this is a way to sort of get the message out and do some political education or PE. So these conversations that I do have, you know, it's with the intent to try to like really, you know, motivate and inspire people to join organization, but also to like really deepen the contradiction within the system and have those conversations outside of just where we are right now, you know, in these spaces, like making sure also that we understand that we can't continue to participate in the system that is not for us. At least, you know, not participate and not have an agenda of overturning, you know, these colonial contradictions. So that's very important. You know, a lot of us may talk about Black nationalism, Black power, revolution, but it has to be in our implementation too. It has to be in our practice. We can't just talk about these things. We have to put it into practice and come up with like practical plans to like really become self-determined. All right. So yeah, I'm a shift into the text right now, and this particular chapter 4 is speaking about the creation of the Black criminal. What is the Black criminal, right? And some of the thoughts that I had as I was just like looking at the text, and I was looking at some other sources too, kind of like looking at some articles and things. And I was thinking from the very beginning, when we talk about the creation of the Black criminal, that happened when when Europeans went to Africa and uprooted Africans from their land, or from our land, I should say. That attack on the African community and transporting Africans to the Americas, African people had to be dehumanized and made criminal. And so, you know, when you think about it, our very behavior in existence, not even just our behavior, but our existence became criminal. Now, how is that? When you think about slave codes, and I'm gonna get into some slave codes a little later, but when you think about slave codes were put in place to deem certain behaviors of African people criminal, right? There were things that we were doing, whether it was resisting or any sort of behavior, consorting with white folks, fighting back against slavery, right? What if the slave master put their hands on us, right? And we defended ourselves. So slave codes made that criminal, right? So acts of defiance and resistance became criminal, as well as other things under slave codes. So that was a way to control our behavior. So our human rights became criminal under colonialism and under slavery, right? So we became criminal in that way. And then when you look at it, our very existence became criminal, because now the same rights that the Europeans were exercising, we weren't able to exercise those rights based on the color of our skin. So, who was it, like when Malcolm X, when he said that he went to jail? Don't look at me when I said I was in prison. He said, if you're Black in America, you was born in prison, right? And that's a fact, like, so even in Malcolm stating that, he's sort of like speaking to what this whole conversation is about tonight, when we're talking about the creation of the Black criminal. So I'm gonna get into the beginning of this chapter, and there's a couple of quotes. There's a quote here by Clayton A. Hartgen, and I could put it on the screen if y'all want to see it as well. I could do that for the people. Are we looking there? All right, so I'll throw that up there. So, and this book should be in the Google Drive as well. So this quote by Clayton Hartgen from Crime and Criminalization said, "Yet some people are selected to occupy the status of criminal. Usually this happens because they are thought to have acted in a way that threaten the interests embodied in the law. Criminalization thus involves the application of criminal law to a person's behavior, insofar as the criteria for labeling someone a criminal reflects some disparity in group interests and power, that which is defined as crime, and those who are selected to fill the criminal status are socially created objects of the structural characteristics of human society that produce conflict and inequitable distribution of power in society." Right, and this structure thing too. The um the European was able to, through labeling of the criminal, was also able to sort of perpetuate this idea, and it becomes like self-fulfilling in a sense. As a matter of fact, hold on, this next quote. Let me get to this next quote because it talks about that. So Paul Wasilewicz, the Invented Reality. So I was going to get to this point. So a self-fulfilling prophecy is an assumption or a prediction that, purely as a result of having been made, causes the expected or predicted event to occur and thus confirms its own accuracy. So there's two things that is happening simultaneously, right? There's the European who labels the African criminal, its behavior there. No, I didn't just say that, but our behavior, right? Criminal, the way that we, our very existence being criminal. So now the actions of the European is going to be thus to treat African people criminally. Right, so that's happening, and so that's the self-fulfilling prophecy on that end. And also Africans begin to buy into this idea of us being criminal and certain behaviors being criminal. So now our behaviors become shaped in a sense based off of that. So it's either assimilate into the system of oppression and exploitation and become more European-like, or if I remain this way, if I remain my African self in a sense, then I'm not human. I'm criminal in this. I'm looking at myself as the other. I'm putting myself in that category. I'm putting my own self in that category as well as the European. So it almost goes to even like the boys' double conscious in a sense, but that has been happening throughout our history. So when we get to this point where we are today, we've been conditioned to think that our traditions, our culture, our language, and all of that, even just where we're from, we want to distance ourselves from that. We think in order to advance in society that we have to integrate, acculturate to European values and so forth, right? And those who resist that, are sort of put in the margin, even within our own community. You know, Black people look at revolutionaries and cultural nationalists. You know, they look at them as odd. That's why it's so difficult to like really organize our people, despite living under oppressive and exploitive conditions. Despite you know, they can say like, yes, America is racist, right? But at the same time, they look to be a part of America, and they even will consider themselves to be American. So how can America be racist if you're an American? Yo, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about it as I'm talking. It's crazy. It's insane, man. You know, yeah, I'm American, but America is racist. Well, then you're racist, right? You know, by default, if you look at that. And when you really look at it, when you talk about neo-colonialism, you know, that is Africans carrying out and it don't even have to be just the neo colonists, but those who participate in those who struggle to become one with Europeans and white Americans. You know, they're actually um, practicing racism. They're practicing oppression and exploitation. Those who strive to be part of the bourgeois class, right? The petty bourgeois. You know, their very actions. So, you know, we participate in our own oppression and exploitation as a result of that. So, you know, it kind of makes sense when you think about it in that way. And so, with that being said, this is why it's so important to everything that we do being African centered and being revolutionary. So everything that we're building, you know, even the family structure, you know, inside the house, everything that we do, our interaction with our children, the raising of our children, everything has to be um, against, you know, the system. It has to be antithetical to the very system that we're part of. Because when you think about it, the development of America's design is antithetical to African existence, right? That's why it's a genocidal system at the end of the day, and this goes back to why Black people had to be criminalized from the very beginning. So let me get into it. Look, I'm still on the quotes. When men define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. So it's kind of, you know, going to what I'm talking about. So this is an interesting story right here. So I want to read this story because it's Dr. Wilson. Well, he didn't come up with the story, but this parable right here is a parallel to the African experience in America. So a man named John once owned a show dog, right? Let me move this. All right, a man named John once owned a show dog who had won for his master many prizes, helped him to become wealthy, win the envy of his friends, and even helped to save his master's life on a number of occasions. As the vicissitudes of capitalism would have it, there came a time when there was no longer any money in the show dog business. The situation changed Master John's feelings towards his once prized possession. He could be heard often saying he is lazy, a good for nothing cur. All he wants to do is just lie around and eat up my food. I wish he'd just go away. Filled with hatred and resentment, Master John, by various cruel and ingenious means, drove his dog rabidly mad. Right. So we know with this parable so far is alluding to slavery, the end of chattel slavery at the Civil War. Now, you know, African people are now free, right? And this is also what happened after the end of the Civil War, and African people, quote unquote, free, because we're still dealing with colonialism, right? So there's levels to this, but what happens is now Europeans are saying that or white Americans are saying that, you know, Black people are lazy. You know, they don't want to work. They don't even want them around. You know, there's this push to you know, really get rid of that. Even beforehand, Abraham Lincoln himself tried to put together a immigration, plan to try to, or colonization plan to try to transplant Africans somewhere in the Caribbean or South America or Africa, right? So the white population, was looking all throughout the 19th century with the American Colonization Society and so forth. They just didn't want to have anything to do with Africans. If they weren't slaves, then you need to go. And then when slavery ended, okay, let's find a way to get rid of these African people. And if you look at, there's a guy by the name of Nathaniel Schaller, and he wrote, I think it was called The Negro Problem, which is very interesting piece. But Nathaniel Schaller, and look him up. I'm not going to let me make sure I got the name of that article right. I believe it's called The Negro Problem, though. Yeah, The Negro Problem in the Atlantic. If you read that piece that Nathaniel Schaller, who was a eugenicist, right, white supremacist, he talks about the sin of bringing Africans to the Americas. Like, he was cursing his forefathers. He thought it was a mistake because now the European or the white American has to deal with this Negro problem. We got to civilize these Negroes now, So, a lot of Europeans didn't want to deal with that. That's why you had like a eugenics movement, right? And the genocide, the terrorism that was taking place all throughout the South, right, was to really stomp out this competition, this labor competition, right, that was going to take place after the Civil War. So you had white laborers now having to compete with Black laborers, and they didn't want to do that. And then you had former slave masters who did not want to pay their former property, right? So a new form of slavery took place through convict leasing and other means. So all of this is happening, all right? So just to go back to this, that's just some context. That's where we are right now with this story. So one day as fate would design it, one day as fate would deign it, the mad dog Africans attempted to attack its master. Master John felled him with a single shot from his elephant gun. Because there was a law against shooting dogs, Master John was tried before a jury of his peers. Master John is represented by his lawyer, pleaded self-defense. It is cut and dry, his lawyer exhorted. The dog was mad, or the African was mad, right? Where was that? Okay. So the dog was mad, and his madness, he sought to attack his master, who in self-defense shot him. How many times we hear that today, right? Self-defense, stand your ground. He's driving the dog mad, and thus allegedly having precipitated the dog's attack, as argued by the prosecutor, is irrelevant and immaterial, right? So you get that. So just to read that again, because I know I kind of like paused, said, so one day as fate would deign it, the mad dog attempted to attack its master. Master John felled him with a single shot. So he shot the Black man from his elephant gun. Because there was a law against shooting Black people, in this parable, we're talking about dogs, Master John was tried before a jury of his peers. Master John, as represented by his lawyer, pleaded self-defense. It is cut and dry. His lawyer exhorted. The dog was mad, and in his madness, he sought to attack his master, who in self-defense shot him. His driving the dog mad, and thus allegedly having precipitated the dog's attack, as argued by the prosecutor, is irrelevant and immaterial. Has not a man the right of self-defense? Besides, he was only a dog, prone by dog nature to go mad. Yeah, these Black people, they wild, they scary, they thugs. He had to protect himself. He was scared for his life, right? So when they create, that's why, these images, these controlling images, as Patricia Collins, talked about these controlling images, and Black feminist thought when she's talking about Black women, right? But controlling images in general for Black people. Du Bois talks about this as well. Du Bois says all structural oppression, or he talks about how all structural oppression must be accompanied by cultural oppression. And when we're talking about culture, part of that culture is the traditions, the history, right? You have to deny that history of a people, right? That's that cultural oppression, right? Deny history, stereotypes, these things, controlling images. These are ways that we can, or they can justify or rationalize colonialism or racism, right? Oppression, exploitation, right? It no longer becomes oppression, exploitation. It becomes paternalism in a sense. And paternalism is a good thing, right? From the view of the oppressor. And this is why it's important that we define phenomena, we define our reality. Besides, he was only a dog prone by dog nature to go mad. Had he not been a dog, he would not have been driven mad in the first place. For if his master had not shot him, the dog would have lived to attack one of us, our wives, our elders, our fair-haired little children. What does it matter how he became mad? What does it matter if one mad dog is no longer disturbing the peace and posing a threat to law and order? Master John did the world a favor, for that we should honor him, not persecute him. The jury of his peers found him not guilty. Right? Thus began the strange career of Master John, whose single-minded purpose in life became that of breeding mad dogs and executing them in self-defense. He thereby gained a great reputation and honor status among his neighbors, who he protected from mad dogs running loose in the streets. He became an expert at breeding, apprehending, and executing mad dogs. To increase yield and therewith his remuneration, for this was by now a very lucrative business, he penned his trained mad dogs in with the not so mad dogs, many who themselves became mad and escaping their confines threatened the peace. Mad dogs were everywhere. The neighbors in their fear and terror became incapable of distinguishing the mad dogs from the not so mad dogs. They're all dogs. They're all alike. All dogs, even the ones who were members of the family, even Casey, or Cassie, the model dog, who everyone thought was near human, aroused their suspicions. Thus, as a preventative measure, the village was lamentably forced to liquidate all dogs, regardless of their social status or mental state. After all, a dog is a dog is a dog. They even formed a society for the eradication of all dogs everywhere. That is why on any quiet night of the week, you can no longer hear a single dog baying at the full moon in Caneville today. All right. So that's something we want to prevent. We want to prevent to it getting to that extreme. But we are a part of, Dr. Bobby Wright talks about menticide, right? And when he talks about the objective of menticide, the ultimate goal of menticide is the annihilation, extermination of the Black race. And our elder may rest in power. That's a great work. I would encourage everyone to check that out. Hey, peace. I know people are like checking in. Appreciate y'all, Toronto. That's what's up. That's what's up. I was just in Toronto, I don't know if we connected, but I was just in Toronto. So peace. Appreciate you tapping in. Yeah. So that's, Dr. Wilson starts off chapter 4 with that parable. And, one of the things too, to take away from that, which he really gets into in this chapter, is how, the system create what we call the criminal, or what we call the madman, these people, these thugs. All of that is a result of the way that the system has been designed. And when we talk about the system, I don't want it to be some abstract thing. We're talking about people who are at the rim, who have the reins of this system, of this regime. Oh, and to get even more specific, yes, white people, Europeans. These are people who have the reins of this system. And so, and that's not to say that there aren't other groups of people who are working in the interest of white power, but I don't know. Like, is there any other group when we talk about global domination? Is there any other group that's wielding more power in the world? When we talk about military, economic, political power than the European. Because all other groups around the world are fragmented, right? And then get together, there's still some sort of division. There's never this exerting of power, which we do have. We do have the power if we get organized. But it seems like there's always some sort of compromise when it comes to trying to check, or balance the power of the European. Even with it, I mean, if you just look, for instance, look at what's happening in Palestine. Think of how many countries have come out against Israel, right? Like overwhelmingly came out against Israel. They're talking about genocide, human rights violations, but nobody's doing anything, right? Because big bad USA, one nation, right? And Britain, but really the US, nobody wants to go up against that power right then, right? So, this is what we're trying to check. This is what we're trying to overthrow, that type of power. So, I'm going to get into this, but this is what Dr. Wilson is talking about, how the system is like really driving and creating these criminal, what we call criminal, and it's structured. They're created and they're labeled, but it all serves a function. It all serves a purpose at the end of the day, and that's what we have to get to. The purpose, understanding the purpose and the function. I'm reading. There's a text that I'm reading right now. I'm trying to get the author, but behind the image of the strong black woman, I think it's called image. I want to get the title, behind the mask. Sorry about that. Behind the mask of a strong black woman, which is a really good text. But in the text, it talks about the image of the strong black woman and the function of the strong black woman, like what that serves. So, and the argument that's being made is that image of a strong black woman is really serving white supremacy. It's serving patriarchy, right? In a sense, because okay, like what we say when we see a woman getting through the obstacles or overcoming the obstacles that is put in front of her due to capitalist exploitation, due to colonialism, due to misogyny. We look and we like, oh, that's a strong black woman. Look how she is handling herself under these extreme, circumstances. But it takes the onus away from the structure and the system that is creating this burden that's oppressing the black woman, right? So it's not about her dealing with that oppression. It's the job is to overcome. The job is to destroy and dismantle the system that is hindering her, that is making it difficult for her to live, right, and survive. So that's the same thing when it comes to these other images when we're talking about the function, when we're talking about criminal thug. They all serve these labels. They all serve a function. And Tupac, when he talked about thug as well, and he had an act like thug, he turned it into an acronym. And thug life, right, into an acronym. Let me see if I can remember. He said, the hate you gave little infants effed everybody, right? And his whole thing, there he go, he's talking about how the system like really created these thugs. And so Tupac's whole thing was like, I'm going to organize the thugs, and we're going to come and we're going to come back against the system that really effed us, man, that really created this environment that we have to, try to survive in, drug addiction, gun violence, all of these things that is a result of colonialism, racism, and capitalism. So, going into, again, I digress. Not really, I'm on point, but I need to get through some of this, at least some of this. So follow me here, because he's going to drop. Again, this is our ancestor, Dr. Amos Wilson. I encourage everyone to get this book. It was written in the 80s. I feel like we need to really do an updated version. And I was telling myself, maybe that's something I will work on. So I'm giving myself that task. So the criminal is one to whom an appropriate label has been successfully attached. Labeling not only prescribes the behavior of others toward the one labeled criminal, or only negatively seeks to characterize him, it also tends to transform his self-concept and behavior in such ways that incarnates or substantiates the criminal appellation. Right. And that's another thing. I promise I won't keep stopping. I'm going to go through this. But the other thing is how it creates the other. It creates the other. If we're criminal, right? If Black people are criminal, what are white people? And when they dehumanize us, and they and take away our humanity, is to say that the white person is the paragon, right, of what it means to be human, right? They exemplify humanity in a sense. Hey, peace, Comrade Sayero. My man, Uhuru. I came to bring the pain. It's been a minute though. But appreciate everybody for tapping in too. Again, share, subscribe, and I'm gonna keep on coming back with it, right? And so let's get to this. If to be criminalized, especially when the objective basis for such a designation does not exist, is to be dehumanized and to be related to as such by significant others, then the criminalization of the African American male can be arguably said to have begun with the need of white Americans to justify their enslavement of Africans, and continues concomitant with their need to capitalize on unending African political economic subordination. Right. So we can go to the past and see why, but I mean, just to bring it fast forward it to contemporary time, because sometimes we get into this thing, we be like, oh, that was during slavery or that was during Jim Crow. Like, no, I mean, this justifies the criminalization of Black people, justifies the gentrification, right? Quote unquote revitalization of Black communities, which is ethnic cleansing. That's what it really is. It's ethnic cleansing, but it justifies that, and they're able to redefine ethnic cleansing. And what is ethnic cleansing? Ethnic cleansing is nothing but genocide, right? But they're able to call it gentrification, but it is justified because the communities are dilapidated anyway. The communities is infused with a criminal element that needs to be stomped out. And so, even the people in the community call for it. The Africans who actually live in the community, they ask for that gentrification. They want it because they have become the communities have become so disconnected that is no longer a community. Can you imagine being a part of a community where brothers, these are your brothers and sisters, this is part of your clan, but you no longer want to be around each other? Like, you are calling for a foreign power to come, or a foreign entity to come into your community and dominate your community. This is where we are, and we do this under the sort of the pretext that we're all American, which is, it's a lie. It's a contradiction, and this is going to be my message, man. Till I no longer can give this message, is that, Africans identifying themselves with their oppressor is a contradiction. We have to get away from that. We have to, yes, if you are here in America or in any other colony, take advantage of the citizenship that you have, because that really limits it. The way that citizenship should work, or how we should use it, is to be able to uh, take advantage of the limitations that the colonizer has through their own laws. So there's certain things that they can't do to us based on their own laws. So I should have the freedom to be able to resist in my language and in my behavior, and it sometimes they try to confine or limit what it is that you can do. But if you're able to interpret their laws, it's so loose and organic, then you can get around some of these things. And we can see this is what happened with the Uhuru 3, who they tried to get for working as Russian agents, talking about the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and the leaders of the African Solidarity Committee, Jesse Neville and Penny Hess. Right, they was just in court. FBI raided the party's offices, the Uhuru movement's offices. They were fighting the government, and they beat the charges of being agents of Russia, but they hit them with these conspiracy charges, and that's a whole nother conversation, right? But the point is that there's limitations that they have due to their own rules. But outside of that, taking advantage of the citizenship, Africans cannot be fighting to integrate into this dying system. It's a dying system at the end of the day. Capitalism cannot sustain itself. This is why the capitalists are always at war, and the capitalists are colonialists. It goes capitalism and colonialism goes hand in hand. It has from its very inception. You think about all of the capitalist enterprises in the Americas, right? Was a result of colonialism, setting up colonies all throughout the Americas, and then setting up colonies throughout Africa and Asia. Right? This is how capitalism spread. So I digress. So I'm gonna get back to this. If to be criminalized, especially, I don't even know if oh yeah. So this is where I'm at. The cursing form of labeling of another is tantamount to his dehumanization. It is usually a ritualistic prelude and justification for the other's subordination or assault or murder of another. The criminalization of Black people, particularly of the Black male, is a prelude for the rationalization of his economic exploitation, ultimately a prelude to the Eurocentric murder of the African population. Yeah. I mean, somebody put a peace. The Ghana Empire traded humans for Arab salt. Slavery existed from the beginning of time. This is the thing when I get into slavery on the continent. We're looking at the development of colonial capitalism, right? And who is in power right now? Who has political and economic domination? And how is that? How did they get in that position of power? So when we're talking about the international system and who's dominating the international system, and the Ghana Empire, and I think Ghana is not dominating the international economic system. And I know the Ghana Empire really encompassed several countries today. So it's not, the Ghana that we have today. But when you look at, the Ghana Empire, which was located in West Africa is fighting for survival, today. Yeah, as a result of colonialism, as a result of slavery. And even, those Africans who still, because all of those Africans who were victims of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery, all didn't leave Africa as well. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes when we think of slavery and the slave trade, you know, we assume that everyone that was enslaved left Africa, right? Which isn't the case. Hold on, let me see something, y'all. Uh, I don't even know. That's kind of irrelevant right now. But I'm trying to check to see. Got to make sure people on point. I don't want nobody, I mean, in the chat going bananas and going, you know, digressing. Um, so let's focus. So the cursing, a form of labeling, is tantamount to his dehumanization. It is usually a ritualistic prelude and justification for the other's subordination or assault or murder of another. The criminalization of Black people, particularly of the Black male, is a prelude for the rationalization of his economic exploitation and ultimately a prelude to the Eurocentric murder of the African population. So this is kind of, you know, what I was talking about. Oh, somebody is trolling. All right. It's probably, hey, it's probably either a European or somebody that's maybe sleeping with a European or somebody that wants to be a European, a colonizer. So that's how, you know, that works. Yeah, out of here. Yeah, some people can't handle, you know, handle the truth of those contradictions, man. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it hit home. But it's important though, you know, this brings me to another message too, man. It's important that, you know, we really get organized. And I said this earlier. Um, it's important that we really get organized if we're serious about liberating ourselves. I'm I'm at the point now, so I'm in New York, Philadelphia, and you know, just to show you, you know, I'm practicing what I'm preaching. Though I organize with MPDM, which is a mass organization in the Huru movement. You know, I'm connected with the D12 movement, right? Uh, Black Power Media, right? And yeah, to make sure that y'all subscribe to Black Power Media as well, and the Indigenous Nightmare Network, who's in the chat. So make sure you subscribe because we're building, right? And the Black Power Media is a great example of just different platforms coming together and working together through Black Power Media, right? Though we have our own platforms, that's organization right there, right? That's what we have to do. Connected with people of the All African People's Revolutionary Party in Philadelphia, and just connected with some folks in New York. So I'm hoping to um, build with them more, right? Philly Peace Park, you know, from North Philly, West Philly Peace Park, is another group, you know, that I'm working with, right? Malcolm X grassroots movement in Philly. So just like connecting with different organizations, because I feel like I don't want to have to continue to be dependent or see my people dependent on a system that's working against us when we have all of these organizations that are proclaiming that they are revolutionary and are fighting for self-determination. Then hey, we need to be, it's the time is now. Like we have to move with a sense of urgency, and we need to be coming together in a room and talking about how we're going to build dual and contending power, how we're going to build institutions so that our children no longer have to be dependent on the system that we say is working against them, right? So that's where I'm at right now, and you know, and I hope people will tap in, you know, tap in with me, you know, or tap in with any organization where you are, and see what we can do to like really transcend or submerge our differences and really like come together and bring about uh, you know, this change. I ain't even going to use the R word right now. So let me move on. I'm going to I'm going to probably go to a little past the top of the hour because I know they probably want to kick me out soon, but we're going to keep going. All right, so the American dilemma. Check out the American dilemma right now. So, in its oppression of Black America, white America faces a major dilemma. The white ruling class seeks to project a self-image of and public image, which are liberal and nonviolent. It wishes to assume the appearance of being faithfully committed to the protection to protecting the constitutional and civil rights, right? Guarantees of all residents, regardless of race, color, creed, or condition of previous servitude, and to be perceived by them as inherently humane. At the same time, the ruling class wishes to retain its power to rule, to maintain its tremendous wealth, power, hegemony, and privileges. Thus, it is confronted with a major contradiction. It cannot actualize its projected image and commitments without destroying the basis of its identity and power. Since this class is not committed to its own destruction, we must logically infer that its projected self-image, public image, and socio-political commitments are false and hypocritical, which they are. Social equality and privilege across the class and ethno-cultural groups cannot exist simultaneously with white American socio-political and economic dominance. It's a fact. Class privilege and advantage requires the subordination of other classes and groups. For these reasons, American institutions operate in opposition to their publicized missions when dealing with the underclasses and subordinated groups. Consequently, the major social institutions which seek to project an image of objectivity and neutrality in actuality operate in the oppressive interests of the society's ruling groups and against the interests of its subordinate groups. Basically Europeans are a walking contradiction. Walking contradiction. I'm gonna go through like these two paragraphs is really important. Well, all of this is important, but I want to finish these couple of paragraphs, and then I'm gonna go into some statistics real quick. In sum, the ruling groups cannot maintain the hegemony and sustain socio-economic inequality, which are the foundations of their regency, without perverting the ostensible missions of the society's socio-political institutions and utilizing them as instruments of oppression. In America, this perversion must take place while ruling groups hide their oppressive faces behind a seductive facade of democracy, liberty, equality, and brotherhood. Hence, when we look at major American institutions relative to African Americans, we observe the following reversals. The economic system keeps them poor. The criminal justice system mediates injustice. The educational establishment creates ignorance and intellectual incompetence. The family institution breeds broken homes and illegitimate children. The health and welfare system catalyzes sickness and administers healthcare neglect. The lifespan of African Americans is actually decreasing. And the religious institutions support the immorality of racial injustice. These institutions are designed to deceive, fashioned to seem ameliorative, while actually aiding and abetting the injurious exploitation of the population they are supposedly commissioned to help. Paradoxically, they must appear to uplift while in reality maintain and, if necessary, intensify suppression. In fact, their apparent uplifting efforts must, in actuality, be disguised forms of oppression and annihilation. Their ameliorative ideology and practice must be endemically opposed to the interests of the subordinate classes and groups while appearing otherwise. All right, so I'm gonna go to some statistics, but something that we have to keep in mind again when it comes to the system, the creation of, and I just was having a conversation with someone about nonprofits. I can't remember because I've been talking to so many different people, but just like now I do. But the service, even the function of nonprofits, right, is to serve the system, like not really to solve the problems. So the nonprofits become a part of the capitalistic system where the problems created by capitalism, in order to shift the in order to shift the root of the problem, which is the bourgeois, class, those people who are politically and economically oppressing and exploiting African people and other oppressed people. They create the problem, but they individualize it. So with the nonprofits or with any service that is created to address social issues within our community, it's designed to take the onus away from the very system. So it's not the system, it's something about these individuals or these groups of people, Black people, right? So in order to address that problem, we have to develop institutions that are nonprofit institutions or some sort of service that's going to ameliorate that. But in all actuality, it helps sustain the system, the very system that is creating the problem. So it's almost like putting a Band-Aid on it, right? So because they're going to keep on pumping out the system itself is going to keep on pumping out these criminals. They're going to keep coming no matter what. Like, okay, thanks for taking in these people who have some sort of dysfunction, right? Thanks for helping us with that. We're going to have some more for you as soon as you finish, working with them. As a matter, and then it becomes such an overload they can't even handle it. So they have to create more nonprofits, and then we sit around and theorize on how to solve these issues, right? Like, what do we have to do? What type of programs we got to create? Which is cool. The survival programs are important. That's what we call them, right? Survival programs, pending revolution. Some of these things are important to address the contradictions that exist, and the ultimate aim has to be the overturning of the system that's actually producing the problem and the problems in our community. And so that's kind of like what Dr. Amos Wilson is getting at when we talk about all of these different institutions that we're creating. It seems like things are getting worse. Black people are able to vote. Okay, now we got more Black people in office than we've had prior to the 1960 the passing of the Voting Rights Act, right? Black mayors, congressmen, and so forth. But the communities, the power exercised by the Black community hasn't really changed, prior to the 1960s. And even if you say that we are exercising more power than we did then, it isn't showing as far as in wealth distribution, and it isn't showing as far as our communities advancing and being able to defend ourselves from gentrification, right? Or under development in our schools. Like, all of these different problems, you would think that things will be getting better with all of these people that are in office. So if they are exercising power, which brings us to another point, that was spoken about earlier, they're exercising power in whose interests? So let me just show some. So I'm gonna end it with some statistics, because when we talk about the Black criminal, and don't worry, because I'm going to continue to dive into this chapter, because I really didn't even, touch on, a lot. There was a lot I didn't touch on, but I wanted to go to some statistics when we talk about the criminalization of a people, right? White people commit crimes. I mean, obviously, right? White people commit crimes, but one of the things that they like to hit us with is that Black people commit crimes disproportionately more than white folks. But I just wanted to show some where I got okay. So this is from 2019, and if you look at this table right here, do I need to increase this? All right. How that look for you? All right. Yeah. So hopefully you guys can see that. All right. So if you look up top where it says total, I'm not going to go through. Well, maybe we'll go through some of this, but if you look at the total right here, the total of arrests, and well, before let's look at this before I even get into these stats, just to be so that we're all clear on what these statistics are saying. I'm going to bring up this article. Right here. Is this it? I don't think this is the one. But let's look at it anyway. Actually, this isn't the one, but I'm gonna go through this really quick, right? So, systemic racism and crime. Do blacks commit more crimes than whites? And actually, like in this art, when we look at this chart, this article did poorly in touching on like really what the stats are saying. The overall it kind of misrepresented. I think it might have misrepresented, but let me read it again because I might be jumping to conclusions. In 2019, Black people made up 12.2% of the U.S. population. Blacks, however, represent 26.6% of total arrests, including 51.2% of murder arrests, 52.7% of robbery arrests, 28.8% of burglary arrests, 28.6% of motor vehicle theft arrests, 42.2% of prostitution arrests, and 26.1% of drug arrests. All right. So Black residents also have the highest level of incarceration rates of any racial group, which I don't understand. When you look at these stats, we can see that white people are overwhelmingly being arrested more than Black people. So that's a serious contradiction right there. We'll look at Black residents also have the highest level of incarceration rates of any racial group. As of 2019, Blacks were incarcerated in local jails at a rate of 600 per 100,000 U.S. residents, which is more than 3 times the rate for whites, 184 per 100,000 U.S. residents. The combined state and federal imprisonment rate for Black sentenced prisoners in 2019 was 1,096 per 100,000 residents compared to 214 per 100,000 U.S. residents for whites. Combined, do these basic data indicate that systemic racism exists in criminal activity? So I'll get back to that particular article. They're trying to keep me up. Hey,
you know how long ago you will be?
I'm gonna be like, give me like 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
Yeah, 10 minutes. All right. Y'all thought I was joking. Man. So let me really quick look at these stats right here. He should be sitting in on this though. Get some of this information. So let's look at this. So when I say like misrepresent, I don't know. When I look at these stats right here, I see something different. He pointed to particular types of crimes and particular type of crimes that were committed and the amount of arrests with those crimes percentage wise. But if you look up here, like the total amount of arrests, 6,816,975. This is from 2019. When you look at whites, blacks, right, you see the numbers right there. But let's go to the percentage, right? So percentage distribution, whites representing 69.4% of those arrests, Black African Americans, 26.6%, right? So when we look at, yes, particular crimes like murder, that's ridiculous, right? 51.2%, that's crazy. That shows that there's work to do. So we can't say that there's not work to be done in our community, right? So we have to address that. But we have to understand addressing it, 2 things, we have to be addressing things simultaneously. So more than even 2 things, but addressing things simultaneously, whether education, poverty, right, crime, mental health, all of these things. But as well as the system itself. When we start operating like we're at war, things will be different in our community. When we start operating like everything that we do is about nation building, is about fighting and resisting anything that is trying to destroy us, destroy us mentally, spiritually, and physically, right? And to get everybody on that page, then these numbers would transform, because we're not the enemy right now. We're treating ourselves as if we are the enemy, and we're running away from ourselves. And we can't do that if we're going to survive. That's genocide. But if you look at these numbers, boom, why isn't white people represented as criminals when almost 70% of the crimes in America are committed? Oh, I'm sorry, let me not say. That's why I wanted to go to this other article, because we're just talking about arrests, right? So there's crimes that are committed that are not reported. So there are other charts that we have to look at to get a complete picture as well, right? So we're just dealing with arrests right now. But if 70% of white people who are being arrested, 70% of the people who are being arrested are white, then how come there's this picture of or this image of the criminal element that exists in the United States being black people? We should be running away from the white community. We look at rape. 70% of rape people arrested for rape in America are white people. All right, so y'all already know they're about to kick me up out this joint. But with that being said, man, appreciate all y'all for tapping in. Sugar, what you laughing at? Let me see. We got a whole lot. Rainbow Coalition. What Jesse Jackson? What we talking about? Who were at one time leader of Disciples of Chicago, was the leader of the Disciples out of Chicago, who over time joined forces with Fred Hampton, as did many gangs such as oh yeah. There's video footage of that too, with Blackstone Rangers, Vice Lords, Black Panther Party, all doing a press conference together. Yo, it was amazing thing if you think about the potential, right? But who undermined that? So we have to be smarter. We can't let these people come into our community and keep us from coming together, right? And we can't let our own personal feelings, emotions, and ideologies get in the way of us coming together, especially if it's principle, right? Somebody trying to come together and do some wild, talk about making some money, selling some crack cocaine. It's like okay. Nah, there is limitations to forming coalitions, right? So it has to be principled. I'm not going to act like it shouldn't be. But with that being said, man, I really appreciate y'all. Y'all really came through. I was saying to myself, I haven't tapped in for a minute, so it might be two people on this podcast, but y'all came through. Again, subscribe tomorrow morning. If everything goes according to plan, we will be doing a book club on this channel at 10 a.m. Depending on when you see it, though. If you're watching live, Saturday, 10 a.m. If you're watching in the future, tap into some of our previous podcasts, and you'll be able to check it out. So October 19th, we'll be going live during our book club, looking at South Africa. So make sure you tap in tomorrow if you have some time. And with that being said, man, peace, Black Power, Uhuru, get organized, y'all. And until next time, and tap into Black Power Media as well. Peace out.